Okay, so this is continuing on from where we left off in the last video. Sorry, it got cut right there in the middle. I want to try to keep these videos around 10 minutes apiece to kind of get things started. But as I was mentioning, we want to check right here that that sum of that amount is at 3,000. And this is based on the selection of these four cells. Okay, so just to recap, I have the formula here, and I put in an absolute reference that includes those dollar signs before the Q's. The Q's represent the column of my quarter, and so on and so forth. The next thing I want to do is create a percent total. And what this is actually, it's this amount of the count divided by the total. Okay, so it should be equals, and it's going to select C7 divided by the sum of everything in this column. Now, everything in this column here needs to be an absolute reference. And that's because I'm going to copy this formula and I don't want this reference to change. I had one little error and it went ahead and fixed it for me. This is going to be a percentage value, and I want to at least see 2 decimal places. I'm really looking for 3 or more significant figures when I look at these. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this formula down. And another thing to pay attention to is when this is selected, notice it's a sum of 100%. All right. Now the next couple of them, I'm going to do some funky things here. There's a couple things that we want to pay attention to. The first is that price sold unit cost. When I go back to my data transaction, deals with these 3 cells. Now, the next 3, total sales, total cost, total profits, deals with these 3, excuse me, I said cells before, columns. Notice that in between there's 2 columns. And what I want to do is, to make my life a little easier, I want to put a formula here that I can just copy and drag over to the right. But the problem I have is I have 2 columns in the middle right here. If it wasn't for those 2 columns, then all this would kind of work through just the same. So I'm going to fix that problem. I'm just going to go ahead and insert 2 columns. Just know that later I'm going to delete these 2 columns. Okay. All right. Here's what I'm going to put here. This is a new formula. This is going to be the SUMIF formula. Like the COUNTIF, it has several parts. It has the range that I want to look up for a criteria. Then I want to see what that criteria is. And then I need a range that I'm going to sum if that criteria is met. So what I want to do is find the range that has the quarter value, or the date quarter value is. When it matches quarter 1, I want to go look for another range to sum, and that will be the price range. All right, let's put this into practice. So the range that I want here is going to be the quarter range. So go back to data transactions. Quarter range should, remember before it was column Q. For purposes right now, I'm going to make this an absolute reference. Okay. Comma, the criteria is going to be cell, and I'm just going to type it this time because we know what it wants to be. I want it to be B7, and I want to make sure it has no sheet reference before it. By the way, one of the things to make this simple, when I copy and paste this over, I do want column B to remain fixed, but I do want to let the row 7 to move when it goes up and down. So what that means is I need to put a dollar sign in front of B to make the column absolute, but let 7 remain where it's at, so that way the row can change. Then the next thing I need to do is the sum range for the price. So I'm going to come back here. Price so happens to be column F. Now, before, I kept column Q an absolute reference because I'm going to copy and paste this formula but I want column Q to stay consistent because that's where it's looking up the quarters. But I want column F to be relative because as I copy this left to right, I want it then to go to column G, H, I, J, and so forth. So I'm going to close my parentheses and hit enter. Right? So you can see that I have a formula here that goes and looks up column Q with an absolute reference in the data transactions table. It's going to go look in my column B7 right here for the criteria, and then it's going to come here, which is the price column, to sum the values that match quarter one. All right. If I did that correctly, I should be able to come and copy and paste that down. And if I look at each one of these, if you notice, the only thing that's changing with these formulas is the numerical value after the B. Okay. Well, what that also means is now I can take this formula, click and drag it from left to right, and now I have my values. And these are all sum values. Now I can take this entire column, copy it, paste it, and I will have some new values. But I have a problem with that because what I want here now is I actually want average. Okay, and this is not my average, and it has gone through and made the change to my columns. So there's a quick and easy fix for this. So the thing that I have to do, coming back to this formula here, I notice that it is data transactions column F. So I'm going to come back to my first one here in price, first one here in price versus transactions. I'm going to change that from N to F. Now I have my formula all over again, and then I can do left to right, and everything is the same. However, this formula is wrong. Okay, I'm doing the duplicate of what's happening here, but what I really want here is the average. Well, there's a sister function for SUMIF. It's called the average if, and all I need to do is change it for that one cell. And now I duplicate it down, and then I duplicate it left to right. And you notice that here I have some divisions by 0, but remember, these are two columns that I am going to delete. All right, so let's kind of fix a couple things up. All right, we're almost done, really. I'm going to delete those two columns that I was so worried about. All right, I'm going to fix my formatting. Let's go to home. I'm going to pin that down, make that accounting. I'm going to get rid of some decimals. Okay, sold is an integer. Unit cost is dollars. Total sales, total cost, total profits, those are dollars. Get rid of those decimals. Okay. I have the same thing over here. I'm just going to make them dollars, get rid of it. Except average is a little bit different, right? This one, by the way, sold should be integers. I should at least have the pennies for average. Okay. One more edit. I need to move these. So in order to move these into the right position, I'm going to select on the column, hold down my shift key, hover my mouse over this little green edge, and just click and drag. Sold. Click and drag. Unit cost. Click and drag. Total sales. Click and drag. And then total costs. Click, drag. So now everything is sum, average, sum, average, sum, average. All right. We'll clean it up in the next video.